Okay, and I apologize. My older daughter, my video cut out, but my older daughter, I probably would be mortified by the films that I am putting out. It's because I'm trying to race and put out things for people to be able to use right now, especially in this time period. I promise you, I will get my older kids to help me make better quality videos and a website that people can access all this information and my information about nutrition or any other questions they have that I teach to other people, and it will look a lot better. Right now, it's just like a very quick version. And like I said, I figured that some of you who know me will be able to call me up and ask me questions. So we are continuing sequencing. I filmed the whole second part of sequencing. And while it's been processing on YouTube, I noticed that it's not even showing up on my phone. So I honestly think the whole thing got erased. So I'm going to start over from the second part and do it again. Garen's going to help me. Garen's drawing right now. Right, Garen? You're drawing? All right. Okay, so once we figure out what levels all our kids are at, and I hope I went through that already. I might have not, but so let me go through. Actually, I think I didn't. I think I did that on the second video that got erased. But you can't help me, Garen, while I do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to test all your kids. Okay, so you're going to be doing, these are for the older kids that they know their letters, or sorry, their numbers. I am always going to be mixing up words, sorry. That know their numbers, and you can use a blackboard or whiteboard, whatever they're called, or with a dry eraser board, or you can use a paper with pencil. And so I'm simply going to, some people like to already have it written on a card, numbers. And starting with I would start with 5 with my older levels, but it doesn't matter. You can start at 3 and then go on. So let's just pretend I'm gonna write all these numbers ahead of time. Let's see, 3, 4, yeah, that's 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we see that we have 3 numbers, 4 numbers, 5 numbers, 6 numbers, 7 numbers. This will do and make this audio, okay? So I'm going to bring my kid in here, and I'm going to make sure they're focused like I did with Kender. If I have to, I'll have them close their eyes so they really can focus, and I'll ask them if they're ready. And then I'm going to go, okay, 3, 6, 7. If they get it right, great, check it off. And then the next one, 4, 7, 1, 2. They get it right, check that off. 5, all the way up. Okay, so let's say again I get to this one and they get it wrong. I am going to write another one that's the same amount. So there's my second one. And I'm going to go, okay, you ready? And I'm going to give it to them. All right, and if they get it wrong again, this is the level they're at. I'll say they're at a 5. You might find that you go all the way up to 10 with your kid. And you know, whatever they are. So visually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to write it down. Or sorry, this is audio. I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to do the same thing with sometimes I'm lazy with audio backwards. Sometimes I'm lazy, and I'll use, similar numbers, but I'll maybe say them backwards. If that makes sense. But in order to not mess up your kid so that he has the same sequencing, I would write a new series of numbers. Same thing. I would go, okay, now I'm doing, and like I said, pretend like I wrote a whole new set of numbers, but I'm going to write for that kid down. They're at an audio forward of a 5. Okay? And then I'm going to go do the same thing, and this time I'm going to say it forwards, and I'm going to remind them this is going to be backwards. They repeat it forwards to me. So if I say 5, 7, 8, 9, 3, they're going to say 5, 7, 8, 9, 3, and then they're going to think about it and go 3, 9, 8, 7, 5. Sometimes in their head, they're literally 5, 7, 8, 9, 3, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 9, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 5. It doesn't matter. They're still cheating doing it forward, but you want them to be able to go backwards. And when they have to start doing that, you really want them to go, don't do that. Just try to think about it, what you heard, and try to go backwards, okay? Usually, whatever it is, reverse is usually like one down from what it was forwards, okay? Sometimes they can get up to the place, but you really want to focus on doing this. So, and then what I would do visually is I'd write the same numbers down, but they wouldn't all be written here. I'd write, meaning you'd only see something like this, you know? Sorry, distracting you with you also don't, when you write things, you don't want to have anything else around that they can mess themselves up by seeing. So let's pretend I'm doing visual, okay? And remember, I already showed you how to do it differently with a little kid. I'm going to do those cards where I show them and I point, and also the apps I told you about that you can help them sequence. So if I'm doing visual, I'm going to show it to them for 3 seconds, or enough time for them to say it out loud. I'm going to cover it, and if they can pass it off, I go to the next one. I'm not going to do it like this, meaning you're literally going to, and I don't usually use a pen. I usually use a pencil. Here, Garen, can I borrow that for, oh, I have let me borrow that for a second. So I would go, sorry, it's hard for you to see. They got it right, I would erase it, write another one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so when I want them to do it backwards, visual, so this is visual. I'm going to show it to them for how many seconds. If you do erase it, like I didn't erase it good there. Hold on, Garen, just wait for a second. Okay, so let's say I write it down, okay? You can either do 2 things. You can write it, and by the time you're done writing it, cover it up, which means that they could watch you write it, okay? And as soon as you finish writing, you cover it up and ask them what you wrote. Or you can just wait and then say, okay, are you ready? Because sometimes you really want them to be focusing. Are you ready? Okay. And I let them see it. And then I cover it and ask them what it was. And you're going to go up to 4, 5, so on and so forth, all the way till you get to the point where they get it wrong. You're going to do one more. They get it wrong. And then you're going to go, okay, the one before that is the number they're at. So now I have a kid, and let's say I wrote down on my thing that my child was, let me go back to pen. Here, Garen. Sorry, I got a pen. So let's say I figured out that my child was audio forward 5, audio backwards. We'll say they were a 4. Visual forward, let's say they were a 7. And visual backwards, they were at 6. You would notice that your kid is more visual than they are audio. It's important. It doesn't mean that we just focus on visual. It means we really focus on building up that audio, because the more this gets bigger than this, what happens is this becomes a distraction. Their audio, they can't absorb enough information. That sound around them doesn't allow them to focus on what they're paying attention to. So if you're doing math with them and you notice the more you talk, the more it messes them up. It's kind of like, well, looking at something you're trying to memorize and someone in the background going 5, 7, 8, 3, 6, 2, you know, or you're trying to add something or take a number down, and someone this lower causes them to not remember. So we need to get this up, okay? Or you'll find a kid who like had a really hard time reading, and this is very high, but their communication is very good. You can talk to. This is how my 9th child Kender was. When he was little, most kids don't pay attention to what you're talking when you're talking about them. And I know I said this before, but this was extremely high and this was really low. And he wasn't picking up things that little kids pick up on TV. Normally little kids are big on this, and this is low, and which is really hard. The more they watch TV, the more this goes up and this drops. And this is where school is happening. And the reason why is because even though you think they're teaching visual because they're showing you, this is how they're really teaching. The more they talk, that's the way they're teaching and conceptualizing, and all those concepts that are supposed to be learned. It's through this. Reading, you're reading something and you can read all the words, but you don't remember what was read. That is this type, where the visual is higher and the audio. And so those are the concerns that you start having. You can actually recognize what needs to happen. Okay, so if my child is at here, it doesn't matter. the goal is to get them matching, where we're going up and up and up, which is why you need to be doing this on a regular basis. And you're not. So what I would be doing, so what I do for Kender's age, is slightly less than, and like I said, he's would be a second grader, where I'd still do for a ninth grader, probably the same thing, but a little bit more complex. Okay, so let me put my page over so it's easier to recognize. I'm trying to find his paper. I have everything written on. Hold on, Garen. Do you know where Kender's paper is? Garen's La La Land drawing. Hey, Garen.
Yeah.
Do you know where Kender's paper is, where I wrote everything down? When you look around for his paper, his sequencing and all his stuff that I just had. Okay, well, I remember all the things. So this is what I usually write down for a homework assignment, or not a homework assignment, what I need to get done. So remember, we had the levels the child is at. Okay, so we got Kender at these. Okay, so what ends up happening is we write down numbers. Okay, and then we say colors, command. Hopefully this all makes sense, and I will explain this. And we write 3 to 4 times each. Okay, we are going to do, so this is all, this is audio, forwards. Okay, trying to think what else I'm doing forward with audio. Dang it, I really need that paper. I hope you're not drawing on it. No. Somewhere I've lost all the papers that I was using there around. Garen, can you look on the bed for the thing that has all Kender's papers?
Okay.
Because I can't lose those for his school. Okay, so this is audio forward. And then what I'm going to be doing, and I'll explain this, is then I would write down something like... dang it, I'm literally forgetting because Garen, you're distracting me. Can you, no, sweetheart, don't be upset. Just kind of look up here. Look up here and show me all the paper so I can find Kender's paper.
Yes.
No, it's the paper that has written all this stuff on to do. Okay? Okay, so we also have, hopefully you can see this. So what this is going to entail is the same sequencing I did before, but if my child started at a, no, not that, keep going. If my child started at 5, and I'm going to do numbers first, okay, what happens with that is I'm going to be starting, yes, but I'm looking for the one that I wrote for Dad. I'm missing one of them. It's okay. I can probably look at this too. I can look at this in the meantime, Dan. Sorry. You guys are all like way distracted by my getting distracted. Okay, so I just had certain things for Kender that I wanted to show. All right, so what this means is 3 to 4 times. It says 3 times 4, which will mess you up. So 3, we'll say to 4, is I'm going to start with 5, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So once we've already figured out what he is on my normal school day, I'm going to sit down with, when I have my 30-minute with that kid that I'm going to be going through, and I'll explain it on the video what you're going to individually do with them, and then how many things they're going to be doing on their own. I'm going to start at 5 numbers. Okay, and I'm going to do 5. If they get right, I'm going to do 6. If they get right, I'm going to do 7. If they get it wrong, I'm going to do 7 again. Okay, so I've already done like 4, and that's all. If they get 5 right, let's say I go do 5, he gets it wrong. I'm really going to make sure he's paying attention. Sometimes I have them close their eyes again. I'll do 5 again. If he gets wrong, I'll do 4. And if he gets it right, I'll go back to 5. So that's 4. Do you understand? Or 5, 6 got wrong. I do it again, and then 6 goes right, I go to 7. So whenever they go right, they do it right, you go up 1. Whenever they get it wrong, you do it one more time, a whole different set of numbers. But like I said, if they're at a level 5 and you've gone up to 6, I'm going to give them 6 digits that you write down ahead of time, that you speak monotone, that you don't go 5, 7, 3, 2, 8. You go 5, 7, 3, 2, 8. You don't go 5, 7, 3, 8, 2, 9. You don't do that. You don't do them in a rhythm. Okay, once I've done that, I go to colors. Colors is usually, if they were at a 5, you're usually going to start with 4 colors. So yellow, pink, red, green. Write it down first so that you are not just making them up in your head and you're not saying them at a monotone. So I'll go red, yellow, pink, blue. And you also want to write them down because I promise you, you'll forget what you were saying. And you work your way up from 4 to 5 to, and so on. And you're going to keep pushing them. If you get them to a 6, it means the next time don't start at a 5, start at a 6. So you always want to write down where you got them up to and start at a 6. Even though if the next time you do a 6, you do it twice, they get it wrong, you have to go back to a 5. I'd still rather you pushing them each time. Okay, command. So I do that 3, 4 times, and then I go to command. Command means I'm going to do things like jump, sit down, pat your head. They have to repeat jump, sit down, pat your head. And I know I explained this already with Kinder and stuff like that, but those are the things that we want to do, all right? I'm doing the same thing with my older kids, but I make it a little bit more complex. Like touch the doorknob, hit the chandelier, run over to the desk chair. Now, what happened is you're going to notice a lot of kids, especially special needs kids, don't know the difference between a window sill and a door frame and a light and a chandelier. But the thing is just adding words to something makes it more complex. They have to repeat to you what they're doing and then go from there. Okay? So I'm going to do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else audio that I'm forgetting. Okay, the other audio is when they are older. This is what I do with Kinder. Let me see all the things that I do. We've got objects. Okay, so also with audio forward, we have objects. And if I already said this in the first video, I'm sorry because I can't go back and watch it. I'm forgetting. Objects is where you're picking things like car, book, couch, chair. Makes sense? Same thing, whatever sequencing they're at. And then, okay. This is all audio forward. We're also going to do sentences forward. And I gave you the example in there. So you want to write this all down. Sentences forward. And a sentence forward is where we're doing the story. Okay? So you start with like a 3-action sentence or like kind of like a 3-sentence story or a 3-action story. First the kid ran up the hill, then he ran down the hill, then he jumped on the trampoline, then he went to bed. If that makes sense. He repeats the story to you and you don't tell them what happens next, okay? If they're not doing for you. And I would only do that if they get the story right the first time. I do it once. If they don't, I do another story. So maybe you do it 2 times. Okay? All right. Then, like I said, we do the playing cards. Okay? So, this is going to kind of mix up visual and audio because what you're doing is you're saying something and then you're handing them the card. So it would start with 6, Queen, Jack, 2, 5. I'm going to hand them about 20 cards. If they're younger, I'd hand them about 10. If they're really young, but they can still look up things, you might start with 7. So because you need them to give it to you in order. Well, actually, I might not do 7 ever. I might just do 10 because I don't want it so easy where they, just have to put it in order. So they're going to repeat it by saying it to you and then giving it to you. Next, I'll do red, 6 kind of thing, black, king, black, jack, and red, 9, if that makes sense. Okay, so these are the things that I'm still doing with my 6-year-old, all right? And I'm going to do this about 3 times. So each one of these you're doing about 3 times. You're doing this about 3 times. It doesn't take that long. Honestly, to go through this whole set of things, it should take about 5 to 7 minutes. I'm just taking longer explaining the whole thing. So now you're switching in. And then the last thing is when they are a little bit older, you're going to complicate it by going Queen of Hearts, if that makes sense. But you write it down for yourself first. You're going to notice that each whatever number that, let's say your kid's at a 10. This they might be able to do 9 because it's more complicated when you add letters in. This one might be an 8 and this one might be a 7. When I actually say Queen of Hearts, 3 of Spades. Okay, I would not do this with a little kid who doesn't know the hearts and spades. I would just do colors. Sometimes people like to do Uno cards or something like that where they actually go red, orange, where there's actually different colors, okay? Okay, then the visual is the same thing that I showed you, all right? I'm trying to think of all the things that we do. Visual is just going to be numbers. forwards and back and do it every day. And you again start, and you're going to do each one 3 to 4 times. So visual forwards, visual back, and you keep pushing them up and wherever you left off. Okay, so this, can you read all this? Some of you are trying to write this down. That's audio forward. That stands for audio forward. All this is audio forward. And then this is visual forward and visual back. We're doing numbers 3 to 4. Remember, that's a sentence story, which means it's three sentences you might start with if they're at that. If that's too easy, you move it up. Sentence. I can't even spell right now. Older child, I'm gonna move up to. Sorry, I'm the one filming for myself. I'm gonna move up to. And I forgot up here the words backwards. Okay, so you have your words, which is also audio backwards. What ends up happening is a lot. If you notice, we do a lot of audio. It's because most of the time kids are really low on their audio, so we have to do things to get them to not use. A lot of times, kids with audio will be using their visual. They're visualizing or grouping them together. So we use words sometimes because it's very hard for them to do that. Even though they're switching it to visual, they have to be able to think about the word and what it looks like. They still are being able to use both. So we have words where we're going to be saying, like, we're going to find a really easy one. Like, let's just say it's lost. I'm going to say TSOL, okay? If they're at a 5 sequencing, I'd start with a 4. If they were at a 9 sequencing, I still would only start with a 6 or 7 with letter word. Okay? So maybe school. LOOHCS. They repeat. LOOHCS. Again, these are done 3 or 4 times. Okay? And then hopefully this is doing right because I'm taping myself now. All right, the key to all of this, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. Oh, the last thing is category sequencing. Category sequencing is where you think of a category. I don't even know if I'm just filming my forehead right now. Category sequencing is when you think of categories like fruits, things that are cold, things that are square. And I'm going to say something like, give me 2 fruits, 1 animal, and 2 people you know. And they're going to repeat to me 2 fruits, 1 animal, and 2 people you know. And then they're going to go apple, banana, cat, dad, mom. So, and you can do this with a younger age, but you're going to have to, it'll be less sequencing. So it's got to get more complex. Soon you move up to 4 different things. But do you understand? You really get their brain going. I would suggest with everyone to get your kid on mysimplysmarter.com. It's a membership. You pay per kid. It's totally worth it. They can get them up. There's all of these brain things that they get up to. It's fun. There's games on it. Not games that rot their brain. I mean, like brain games. But just having them to have to do audio and visual and building them up. And that's how they get higher and higher. The key you really will find is most of the sensory things that kids have. A lot of it has to do with brain issues. A lot of it has to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with usually that they need a drug or they're emotionally, something's wrong. All of the things that Garen had, and we're still building because granted he was a newborn baby at 5. We were able to build those sensories correct. And so what ends up happening is one affects another, which affects another. And you get to the place where you need to be at a dominant level. And this is why it's so important, which I love NAC teaching me these things. If I'm right-handed, I'm supposed to be right-eyed, dominant, right-eared, dominant, and right leg dominant. If I'm mixed anywhere, which means I'm left-eared and I'm right-handed, it means the things that I'm going to hear, I'm going to be storing in the hemisphere that I have to, which is this hemisphere, the opposite side. So if I'm right-handed, my dominant hemisphere is my left brain. And this might be backwards on the camera, but, and then the opposite. So if I'm storing my information in my subdominant hemisphere, the only way to access that information is me moving around, me goofing off. If I am more of an audio person and I'm left-eared, or people are teaching me audio, which teachers are always talking to us, and the kid's not getting it because when they sit down, They're supposed to be sitting still, and then they can't access it. When you go to write, you are accessing your dominant hemisphere. In order for the kid to focus or even access this information, he usually has to sing a song or move around. If a kid is really, really visual, like I had my oldest son was, he was left-eyed and he was right-handed. And what happens is, because he was homeschooled, it was easy, but he had to bounce around, he had to goof off, but that's how he accesses information, because most of his information was stored in his subdominant hemisphere. You'll end up finding a lot of kids do not have all these problems we think they have. They just are mixed in their sensories. And there's amazing things that they can do to help them get up and figure out what was missed. But understanding that maybe that is why they're not accessing it, and helping them build up these audio and visual where they can, first we'd like to get it to a place where they are right-eyed and right-eared. If they're left-handed, they're supposed to be left-eyed and left-eared. But tempers, focusing, things like that, all have to do with a lot of times that you find that they're mixed. And I know with my daughter, we had to put a left earplug in her ear while she was learning, and instantly she would remember, because the things I would teach her, she was listening to with a right ear instead of storing it in the opposite side of the brain. And then instantly the next time she'd remember how to do it. But it took a while for her to do that. I know some of my kids had to wear safety glasses where they fogged, not blacked out, but fogged the left eye in order for, and the things that they learned, everything they were learning from then on, they were storing in the proper hemisphere. These are just amazing things that they have taught, and I've watched my kids where they would explain to me, this is why this kid is throwing a fit. And when they click over to logical, meaning when they calm down, they can't calm down. They're triggering their emotional side. It's why when people have strokes, you'll see that they might not be able to speak, but they can sing. Or you'll find out someone has Tourette's, and you've heard this always before. They'll be ticking, and then when they sing, they don't. It's because it's in their dominant hemisphere, their subdominant. Or someone has a stroke, things like that. Just different things, and it's so amazing what the brain can do. So that is my ending of my sequencing. I am sorry these are shoddy videos, but I'm trying to help people as fast as possible get information. And I promise you, after all this stuff that we're going through finishes, I will have my kids who actually know how to make good videos make some really good videos where I'm standing in front of a board or something where it's good lighting, and that you guys have it's more exact, and that you can be able to share with other people. So hopefully this answers some of your questions, but please do not skip sequencing. It is by far the most important thing when they're younger, and even when they're older, to help them get over a hump, because you might find that there's a big difference between audio and visual, especially if they're older and they've been having a really hard time retaining information. All right, thanks. Have a great day.